I believe I'm a C cup. However, this is telling me otherwise. I mean, I guess getting measured at Victoria's Secret was wrong. I love this dress. It's all my favorite colors. It's got 3 different patterns on it. It's somewhat cinched at the waist. The sleeves are pretty. And look at the bottom. Ooh. So what's the problem then, girl? Why are we here? Well, I bought this at a vintage shop and didn't find out till I got home that it had a hole in it. Where is the damn hole? It's in such an odd place. I don't know how to fix it. It looks like somebody grabbed scissors because the pattern doesn't match up. So I'm gonna follow their lead and cut it up as well. The dress I picked is the Betty dress by Cayden and I got it for $15 on Etsy. I think this one will work really nicely because it has a drawstring. Look at these little beaded strings on here. So that means I get to reuse these, and I don't think it'll be hard to do it with a few different multicolored patterns. And the creator of this pattern called it an Empire Waist A-line dress. And I kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about that. Empire Waist, why is it called that? A-line dress, I need to know more. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of that while I'm ripping this dress apart. Maybe a little fashion history? Why not? And I think it might make the video a little bit more interesting instead of me being like, oh, that looks cute, that looks nice. Okay? So, here we go. I'm gonna start with taking some measurements. I need my chest just under my armpits, 34. Full bust, 36 and a half. My waist, yeah, I'm gonna say 31 and a half. And my hips, around 38 and a half. 39. I think I'm gonna go with a size 5 because the finished garment measurements look like they have plenty of ease for me to be able to fit in it, and I want it to be kind of tight. It has these ties that you can pull tighter, so I think that this will be the perfect size. This person is awesome. They put in plenty of tips on how to lengthen and shorten, how to grade between sizes, and I love that because those are things that I often wonder. Should I mix sizes or not? She also has a page that tells you how to raise the neckline and a lot of other tips. Because it has that hole up there, which I probably could just shorten the sleeves, but they come up to right here. I don't know, it's an awkward length. So I think I'm gonna go with the shorter sleeves, and that would be view A. It's really nice that she gave us 2 options because you could either go the short sleeve route or the long sleeve route. And I'm going short. She also included a projector pattern, and we will be using our projector today. That's very helpful. Now that I know what size I need, I'm going to go ahead and start seam ripping this. As I'm doing that, I would like to tell y'all a little bit about the history of the A-line dress because this is gonna take a minute. By the way, if you ever hear this sound, it's because Lou's rubbing his glands on the bottom of my tripod, so I'm sorry. He's such a good boy though. He just needs a hobby besides tearing stuff up. Lou? When I started researching the A-line dress, I was shocked and surprised because did y'all know that it was invented by Christian Dior? I had no idea. I figured it had been something that had been around for a long time. It was actually created in 1955 by Christian Dior when he decided to create a softer silhouette to a previous show he had done called The New Look. And I want to talk a little bit about The New Look. So The New Look was Christian Dior's debut collection in 1947, and it changed women's fashion forever. So similar to the A-line dresses, The New Look was composed of a fitted shirt, a cinched waist, and a fuller skirt, which would often be paired with long gloves and kitten heels, and a big beautiful hat for the baddies back in the day. The New Look highlighted the curves of a woman's body, using a ton of fabric for the skirt and a tight and restrictive waistline. And Christian Dior's use of an abundance of fabric, especially because it was right after World War II, was met with a lot of controversy. People were still experiencing severe rations after the war, so critics were quick to point out his wastefulness of using so much fabric. But Dior encouraged women to dress elegantly and celebrate life after the war, as compared to the utilitarian garments worn in the 40s. We were leaving a period of war, of uniforms, of soldier women with shoulders like boxers. I turned them into flowers with soft shoulders, blooming bosoms, waist slim as vine stems, and skirts opening up like blossoms. Wow! Pretty convincing stuff. So, the New Look restored national pride in France and took the fashion world by storm. He was even asked to host a fashion show for the British royal family. Fast forward to 1955 and he created the A-line look, which it wasn't immediately widespread and it's not exactly what we pictured today, the term became adopted pretty quickly. But here comes Yves Saint Laurent, who happened to be creative director at Dior for 3 years. He came out with a collection called Trapeze line, which featured knee-length dresses that flared out dramatically from fitted shoulders. And then the A-line dresses of the 60s removed attention from the curves of a woman's body and embraced a more androgynous, youthful shape. This fashion movement paired well with the second wave of feminism, which promised women equal pay, no sex discrimination, as well as contraceptive access. So this style of dress was pretty popular in the 60s and 70s, dwindled a little bit in the 80s, and then there was a resurgence in the 90s. Since the 90s, the term A-line has been used to describe pretty much any dress that is tighter up at the top and flares out at the waist. Okay, so that's A-line, and I'm going to talk a little bit about an empire waist in a little bit, but I need to get this damn thing undone, and I've been doing all this damn yapping, trying to educate somebody, including my damn self. I've been seam ripping a little bit and then pulling it open because this is pretty strong fabric. What is this made of? 100% polyester, which I don't prefer to wear polyester, but we're doing this now. Alrighty guys, now I got my bodice cut, my skirt, the sleeves, here's our ruffles, our waistband, and our fun little beaded bits. And here's some elastic that I can probably use later. Another thing is that this calls for a lot of bias tape, so I'm going to try and preserve that wherever I see it. Right here, this is a long enough piece to get me something out of it. So now I'm hoping to project it and sort of see how much fabric I have with each color palette. And I'm gonna start with the bust. So I got my projector calibrated and made a discovery. I just noticed how freaking massive the boob aspect of this is. They give us 3 options: an A-B cup, a C-D cup, or an E-F cup. I believe I'm a C cup. However, this is telling me otherwise. I mean, I guess getting measured at Victoria's Secret was wrong. Oh no! I'm gonna have to do a little research and figure out what I fall into because this doesn't seem right. Ugh. Look at this. This is the A-B cup. Don't look at those titties. Alright, I just measured again and this thing is telling me I'm a double A. So, I guess I've been wrong for years. I don't think I'm a damn double A, but I guess I am. I've been buying the wrong bra size forever. I'm just gonna do the A-B one. I'm gonna go ahead and separate the front and back bodice pieces to this. The pattern calls for the front bodice to be cut on the fold, and I don't have anything that size, so I'm gonna have to do 2 of those and just add the appropriate seam allowance and just sew those right sides together. And I hope it's not too obvious. I do have these big panels from the skirt. Maybe I could use those for the bodice. I really like how this pattern maker put this together, because there are 4 different ways that you can do it, and I'm going to choose the one that is segmented under the cups. I decided the cups are going to be this color, while the part underneath the cups will be in that blue pattern color. There's not a whole lot of that third pattern on this dress, and I probably will just end up making some bias tape or something out of this because none of the pattern pieces are really small enough for that. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it's really hard to see the projection on this, so I think in this case I'm gonna have to cut out a paper pattern because I don't have a printer. I don't even think I know somebody with a printer within a 5-mile radius. It's another day and I only have so much energy because this is a lot of thinking. What I've been thinking a lot about is this damn skirt. Check out how they piece these together. You see, this is like an oval of some sort or a partial oval. Even the red parts are that. You can see from the inside. The new dress I'm making requires quite a bit of fabric for the bottom. So I was at a loss for how I was going to use blue for the bodice and still have enough left over for the skirt. Problem solving. I might be having to do some piecing together for the skirt and we'll just have to make do. I'm a little confused right now of what I'm doing. Aha, I have discovered something. Before I remove this ruffle, I just want to show you, this is the very bottom of the ruffle. This black strip is the 3rd fabric. That means that I don't have to make as much bias tape as I had originally anticipated. So I'm very, very stoked on that. I'm just excited that there's something narrow that's already been cut. I ripped the long strip as well as the ruffle off the skirt. Damn, brother, that's a lot. Then I bravely, or foolishly, removed all the blue panels from it. I want y'all to see what the hell I just did. I cut out the 4 panels that were in there. Now the skirt looks like this. With my newly yanked out blue panels, I cut out the under bust bodice pieces. Since I didn't have enough to cut on the fold, I included about a 1/2 inch seam allowance to both of them so that I could sew 2 halves right sides together to make one complete piece. I cut the cups out in the same manner out of the red fabric. And I totally forgot to do the same thing for the back bodice, but it was fine. Oops! I just threaded up my serger and I'm about to attach where these would have been at the fold. And this probably isn't the proper way to do this, but I'm gonna go ahead and iron these and stitch down where I serged this part. Under bust, back, and cups. So I just went through and found that this pattern creator actually made a YouTube video that I'll link here, but they didn't finish the seam until after they finished attaching everything. So I made sure I have the dots to show me where the gathers start and end, as well as the matching points on the bottom front bodice. So I'm gonna put those together now, starting with making some basting stitches. If you don't know, a basting stitch is a long temporary straight stitch which is used to hold fabric together temporarily, or to create gathers, as I'm about to do here. Call me crazy, but I usually only do one of these. I'm just careful with it. Everybody says do 2, but I usually just do 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and make these gathers so that it'll fit the front bodice. Alrighty now, I did the gathering and I pinned the 2 pieces together of the front bodice. I stitched and then serged those together. Now wait a damn minute. Oh yes, Miss Thing. Don't tell me this is about to be a sexy little number. So I'm supposed to have a certain amount of bias tape, and this is what I removed earlier, and I'm just trying to gauge how much I have already because I'm gonna have to finish the top edges of everything with bias tape. So I'm just gonna see if this original one will go all the way around. Otherwise, I gotta spend the rest of the night making bias tape. If you can't already tell, making bias tape is one of my least favorite sewing things to do, and I already know I'm gonna need to make more later. Alright, it appears that this will be the perfect amount of bias tape for the top neckline, but I do need to make some loops. I think the best thing to do would be to use the black piece on the top of the ruffle. I only need, I think, 16 inches of that. I ripped the strip off the ruffle and a little carpal tunnel type pain started to persist because my ass was not being careful. Ow! I'm starting to hurt my wrist. I just ripped that off and look at that. That is some perfect, already half-made bias tape. So I'm proud of myself for discovering this. Yeah! I ironed down the entire length of the fabric to create a long tie that I thought should be long enough for the entire rest of the garment. Because we need the loops for the tie in the back tie, the front tie, and the tape around the neckline. So I just measured how much I have. I'm probably gonna have to make some more, which I didn't think that would be the case at all, but I realized that I do want to do the bias trim on the neckline and around the top of the bodice with the darkest color. And there's a bow that goes right here and hangs down. And I already have these 2 that used to exist on the other dress that have the beads on the bottom. And I have this cut out as well. So my plan is to attach these together. That will be my bow. However, I didn't realize this one pattern piece was all the way at the top, which is for the back tie, and I'm supposed to cut a lot of it, and I don't have enough for that. So the tie is probably gonna come at the very end because I don't know how much fabric I'm gonna have left. But for now, I have this and I'm happy with it. I'm sewing the loops. Oh my. Look who wants attention. Do you want to watch? Ow! Hey. Cats can watch sewing too. Can't really do anything with you on my lap, bud. Hey! There's Barn! A round of applause for Lou. After sewing down the length of the tape, I cut it into 8 2-inch loops. Now I'm going to sew these loops on. I don't know if I cut out the back bodice incorrectly, but the markings on it were kind of close to the edge, and almost peeking into my seam allowance. So I'm just gonna kind of adjust them to what seems even and far enough from the seam allowance to where it won't be a problem. I tell you what, these clips here are getting a lot of action today. I hope those are even. Now I get to put the front and back bodice together, which is very exciting for me. I placed the loops between the front and back bodice, right sides together, catching them in the side seams. I feel like these loops are going to be itty bitty. It's fine. That's right, girl. Moving on, because according to the pattern creator, I've already finished the hardest part. So what are we gonna do for these sleeves though? I'm just taking a look at what I have left. With the state of the skirt, I figured maybe I should use blue for the sleeves and leave the remaining red to fill in the rest of the skirt, and I thought the blue would be adorable. Oh my goodness, hold on. But the red. But I was still so concerned about the skirt. I honestly may be needing to use these sleeves to fill in the parts of the skirt. So I let myself sleep on it. I'm not sure. The next day, I've been thinking about how to do this skirt all night. So I'm gonna cut out the pattern pieces for the skirt and measure how much fabric I have. I might have to add another fabric because it takes up my entire mat. I created the paper pieces for the skirt and the sleeve, and fear began to creep in. Okay, I'm genuinely scared because with this being all that's left, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do. I mean, if it ends up being a shirt, it ends up being a shirt. At this point, I only had the back bodice of the previous dress, the red sleeves, ruffles, and a small bit of blue left over that I had ripped out of the skirt. And one thing about the ruffles is that I think they were cut in a spiral because look how they look. It's not actually gathered on top. I gave myself a long, hard second to think. Okay, hear me out. I'm going to, instead of doing the blue for the sleeves, because I don't have a ton of this left, and the sleeve pattern was bigger than I pictured, I'm going to use the previous sleeves, and from there, I'm just going to figure out the skirt with the rest of the fabric, and probably do some wild stuff. Ah, yes. This large sleeve. And here's that dumbass hole that started it all. I cut the sleeves out of the sleeves, folded them right sides together to sew and serge, then attached them to the bodice. After finishing that seam, this is what I had. And the next thing I needed to do was add bias tape to the neckline. The pattern creator instructs to start in the center back so you can cover up the raw edge of your bias tape. So I did what she said because I do what I'm told sometimes. But anywho, I attached only half the bias tape because there was an extra step here where I needed to add interfacing to the front center. Okay, I put my little interfacing here and I have to put 2 buttonholes right underneath the binding trim, which makes sense because this is a very thin fabric. I have to bust out my other machine, which can do buttonholes because my industrial only does straight stitching. I might do a little practice first because sometimes doing buttonholes doesn't work out the way we plan. I got a button that's about a centimeter. I think it might be a little big, but that's okay. And my buttonhole foot. I often forget the order of this part because you have to reset it beforehand every time you do a new buttonhole. Then you put it on the buttonhole setting. I always seem to forget that you have to put this lever down because it tries to make a buttonhole that goes all the way off of God's creation. Yes, I got 1 buttonhole, so I feel confident. I suppose the fear I'd had previously had dissipated as I was back to my old antics. 1 out of 5 correct buttonholes, and I was ready to build a house with my bare hands by myself. I finished those and my perfectionism got the best of me, so I ripped one of them out and did it again. Typical me. And somehow I still jacked it up. Well, I think I did these too low, because the instructions did say right below the bias tape, this bias tape is supposed to be a channel for the elastic. So I'm gonna do things my own way. I think I'm just gonna start sewing around this way and then finish sewing around this way and then maybe just leave a little gap for the elastic. I think it'll be okay if I just rig it up. And rig it up I did. Now it was time to create our front tie. So I have this elastic from the previous garment. In the instructions, she takes the bow and the elastic and sticks those together, then threads those through this channel. Well, since I couldn't fit the beads through the channel the way she did, I tried a different way to MacGyver this thing. I first threaded the elastic through the channel with a safety pin, with it still hanging out. Since the beaded strings weren't long enough, I attached some of the bias tape I'd salvaged from before to the ends of the beaded string. I attached one end of the string to the elastic. Then I pulled the elastic back through to where it met the shoulder seam. Haha, I can feel it right there. And stitched it in place from outside the channel. I guess I didn't think this through, because how was I going to get the other end of the elastic attached without it being the wrong length? How am I going to cut it in there? Huh? What do I do? Well, I did a good old-fashioned guess and pray. And I think that if the elastic is too short, I could just seam rip and add a little bit more elastic in there. It looks good. It's just a little tight. So I'm going to add more elastic because it's kind of constrictive. Okay, I fixed it. That's a lot more comfortable. After adding more elastic, it was still a bit boxy, but I figured the skirt would help weigh it down. And now it's skirt o'clock. It's the next day and I'm hungover. It was my friend's birthday last night. Anyway, as you saw before, the skirt is a wispy octopus currently, and I think I need to take this whole thing apart and then piece a bunch of stuff together. I would like it to not look like a disorganized mess. It'd be cool if there was some type of pattern to it. And I'm also worried about the inside looking like crap. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to do some French seams on the inside. And I didn't really, that's so much extra, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I cut the top off the skirt and removed all the rounded panels. Then I began placing the panels on the floor to try and make a pattern that wasn't going to be too obviously pieced together. I straightened out the rectangular pieces and cut the tops off of the rounded panels to make them into trapezoids. Since I only had a little blue left, I decided I would use those to flank either side of the trapezoid, which I attached with French seams. I got inspired. Picture it. This is going to make me look snatched. Whoa. Well, that didn't play out the way I thought it would. I thought I would have enough energy to get through more than what I did, but I didn't. I was hungover as f***. I've been piecing together the larger panels I have, and I'm no longer doing French seams because I think they're taking up too much room, and I don't have a whole lot. But now I do have a front and a back panel. I know for sure that it's going to be shorter than what was anticipated. However, I have some ideas for what I want to do on the bottom. You're going to think I'm crazy, but hear me out. And I'm going to do a test first, but I've been cutting them into smaller strips like this. I think I'm going to make something that goes all the way around in alternating patterns.
Are you sure you want to do that, girl?
Hell yeah! I got started and this is it so far. I still need to top stitch, but are you kind of seeing where I'm going with this? Alrighty, I got this one so far. This is the front one and I'm working on another one for the back. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna attach these like that on the bottom there. I think we're gonna be loving this in the end. Hell yeah. Alright, so I got these two. Yeah. It's crazy that I've been doing this for over 5 hours and it's only this much progress. By the end of those 5 hours, I'm always like, oh no! This pattern is starting to trip my eyeballs out. Power through. Trust the process. Do it, lady. What do we think?
Nice.
Let's see what it looks like on Esmeralda. Oh my word, this little number about to be something else. That looks good. I even think that these patterns are so damn busy that you can't even notice that I did all that patchy stuff on the bottom, and that's okay with me. I did the same thing for the back panel. Then it was time to put the skirt together and attach it to the bodice to create the empire waist. And while I'm working on that part, I'm gonna tell you why it's called that. Alright, teacher girl. So this dress would be considered an A-line dress, but it also features an empire waist, which is fitted at the bodice and flares below with a gathered skirt. And that gives it a high-waisted appearance, which we like. The empire silhouette goes back to the 18th century and refers to the first French Empire. It harkens back to Greco-Roman art, where women were depicted as wearing looser-fitting clothing in comfortable, warmer climates. The empire dresses of the 18th century were usually white to show high social status, and they were made with short sleeves. Napoleon's political agenda during the First French Empire popularized this look in a regal context. The Empire style created a huge contrast to the more constricting silhouettes of the 1770s, and adoption of this style could point to French political upheaval after 1789, which encouraged going back to ancient virtues. The simplification of this new style differed a lot from what was being seen in Europe and the colonial Americas in the mid-18th century, which was a lot more elaborate and intricate. The Empire waist style went through some adaptations throughout the years regarding sleeve length, restriction level, and bulkiness. And similar to the A-line silhouette, there was a revival for the Empire waist in the 60s when social norms surrounding women's clothing became a lot less limiting. So now we see why she did that on this dress. Quick recap to explain what I did since I've been cosplaying as a fashion historian. I stitched the front and the back skirt panels together, matching up at the line where the upper skirt and lower quilted panels meet. After serging that, I did a basting stitch on top of the skirt to gather it so that it would fit the bottom of the bodice. Right sides together, I attached the bodice and the skirt. Although I thought it was looking fantastic, I wasn't fully sure about the length, so it was a good thing I saved the flounce from the previous dress. I added the flounce, and I'm not even going to show y'all how damn cute that looks until later on. I'd also saved up just enough of the red fabric to make the back ties. I was about to use a similar technique to how bias tape can be made from a fat quarter, but somewhere I lost my way and started making them crazy style. Something overwhelmed me at random. So I'll just leave a link in the description on the proper way to do that. Because instead of making one long continuous piece of bias tape from a rectangle, I basically pieced all the strips together one by one. Then, instead of doing a double fold bias tape, I folded and ironed the tie right sides together, stitched about a 1/2 inch width, and turned it right side out. But check out that finished product. Alright, now I'm threading this thing in the back. I am almost done. I think all I have left to do is to put the elastic around the armbands because I don't have to hem anything. The ruffle I put on was already hemmed. Not following instructions exactly because I'm a hard-headed queen, I serged the edges of the sleeves and sewed them under once, leaving a gap for the elastic. Then I measured my unnaturally brawny biceps and threaded the elastic through. The final step was to close that bad boy off. And now, are y'all ready to see what I hooked up today? Well, I guess it's safe to say that I done did it again. And here's some final thoughts. The fact that I was able to turn this dress into this dress tells me that I made the right choice in picking that pattern for the upcycle. If I wasn't so damn lazy though, I would have actually measured out the length of the binding trims, the ties, and the loops and actually been able to save time. But I will say that doing it my way ended up saving a lot of fabric and it became as close to a zero waste upcycle as I possibly could have gotten it. I even saved and reused the elastic, so I'm proud of myself for that. And adding the quilted strips to the bottom of the skirt helped me to lengthen the dress as well as use up some of the flounce that I didn't really know what to do with. This is everything I have left, and of course I saved it to use it for something later on. I'm not sure what, but I do want to make some puppets. For the sleeves, I thought about making them a little bit more flowy like that butterfly top I'd made in the past, but I wasn't sure how to do that without making them more bulky, and I don't really know how to do a rolled hem, so I should learn that in the future. For the bra size, I suppose I'm in the AB category because this fits me perfectly. And that's news to me, because I definitely went and got sized a couple times and they said it was a different size. Bra sizes confuse me. Maybe I'll do some research and do a video on that because I think a lot of people are confused about this. The final garment measurements put me at ease about this and I actually ended up being correct. So if you're in the itty bitty titty committee like me and in denial about it, then I suggest going for the AB cup. Speaking of which, I highly recommend this pattern. The instructions are some of the best I've ever seen. And all the examples I've seen show me that it's flattering on multiple body types. I'm so excited for it to warm up a little bit and I could wear it in spring and look snatched to the gods. The link for the pattern is in the description, and if you make it, you should tag the pattern creator. I'm so excited to have found them and definitely want to check out some more of their patterns. And that's about it, except for I finished my quilted wall hanging for the pet portrait giveaway, and I'm going to show you that right now. This is Alma's baby 8-Ball. Isn't he a doll? I decided to go with a smaller piece because I wasn't really sure how much wall space was available, and I'm really happy with the result. I used embroidery on felt applique and dyed the piece with a sweet little lace border, as you can see. But that didn't feel like enough, so I also added some little fishies and a little 8-Ball. I hope you like it, Alma, and I'm gonna be hitting you up soon to send that to you. If you like this style of video, please hit me with a hell yeah and or subscribe. I love making these videos and I'm about this close to monetization, so any engagement makes a huge difference. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.